The hospital room buzzed softly with fluorescent lights, sterile, white, lifeless, the kind of place where time dissolved into antiseptic stillness. Danielle Porter lay motionless, a thick gauze bandage wrapped over her eyes, cocooning her in darkness. Her fingertips grazed the cool metal edge of the hospital bed, clinging like a woman afloat on wreckage. Her heart beat louder than the machine's. She heard the door open. "Hey, sweetheart." Jordan's voice was smooth, practiced to even, like a salesman pitching sympathy. She turned toward it, carefully measuring her breath. The scent of lilies drifted toward her, her least favorite flower. He'd forgotten, or never knew. "Brought you flowers," he added, setting them down with a dull thud on the tray. No kiss, no brush of fingers, just silence stretching between them like wire. "I thought you hated hospitals," she said softly. "I do," he replied. "But, had to check in. Everyone at the office sends their love." "Everyone at my office, you mean," she thought. Danielle tilted her head. Her eyes couldn't see him, but her heart had learned to listen better than most. Something was wrong. The words didn't match the rhythm of the man she once built an empire with. "You okay?" she asked. "Yeah, just ... stressed. This week's packed. Can't really take much time off." A long pause, then the scrape of a chair, legs shifting against the floor. But he didn't sit. He was standing, hesitating. "I'll be busy with work this week," he said, voice low now. "Don't call too much." He turned and left without waiting for a reply. The door clicked shut. A moment later, she heard his voice just outside, different now, lighter, unburdened, a laugh. Then, "Yeah, babe, she's out of it." "No, like, totally blind." "Swear to God, just me, you, and Cabo, next week." A woman's name fluttered from the hallway like a knife through cloth. Ava. Danielle lay perfectly still. Her nails bit into her palm beneath the sheets. "I gave him everything. Built a company from nothing. Made him partner. Loved him without question. And now I'm pretending to be blind because I needed to see the truth with my heart." She exhaled slowly, letting the pain pass through her like smoke. Let him laugh. Let him plan. He thought she was broken, helpless, a blind woman lying in the dark. But the trap had been set, and she wasn't the one about to fall into it. 3 months earlier, Lagos buzzed with its usual chaos horns, blaring, heat shimmering, over glass towers, and ambition crackling in the air like static. Danielle Porter, 35, stood at the heart of it all. She was the founder and CEO of Ethertech, one of Nigeria's fastest-rising tech firms, a woman whose name carried weight in boardrooms and headlines alike. Poised, brilliant, razor. Yet behind the tailored suits and confident pitches was a woman quietly unraveling. Her marriage to Jordan had once been a wildfire, intense, consuming, beautiful. He was charming, magnetic in that careless way beautiful people often are. A former model who had transitioned into entrepreneurship with the help of her network, her money, her mentorship. They had built a life together that looked perfect from the outside, but perfection has a way of rotting from within. The shift came quietly. After their 3rd wedding anniversary, the warmth between them cooled to silence. Jordan stopped staying for morning coffee. He brushed off her attempts to connect with smooth excuses, late-night meetings, sudden trips, unexplained fatigue. Conversations became one-sided. Touch became rare. Where there had once been laughter, there was now a quiet, unspoken contempt. He looked at her like she was a stranger occupying space in his world. Naomi, Danielle's assistant, noticed it before. Danielle allowed herself to. Naomi had been with her since the start-up, days loyal, soft-spoken, and impossibly perceptive. She tried, gently, to raise the alarm. "Madame, have you noticed? Mr. Jordan's been coming home late, a lot lately," she said one evening while organizing Danielle's schedule. Danielle had waved it off with a tight smile and the kind of denial that successful women learn to wear like armor. "He's just busy," she replied. "Things are tense with the investors." But the truth couldn't hide forever. One night, while searching for a pen in Jordan's briefcase, Danielle's hand brushed against something cold and metallic. A second phone. Not his usual iPhone, but a cheap burner tucked deep in the lining. Her heartbeat thundered as she unlocked it. He hadn't even bothered to use a password. What she found shattered whatever illusions she still clung to. Texts from Ava. Hundreds of them. Messages that pulsed with flirtation, innuendo, and something worse, intimacy. Photos of sunsets from beach resorts she had never visited with him. Shirtless selfies. Voice notes calling Ava baby, telling her how Danielle would never see it coming. Conversations mocking her, strategizing how to get access to her shares in the company. Danielle sat in the living room for hours, frozen, not crying, not screaming, just absorbing the betrayal like a slow toxin in her blood. She had built everything they had, his lifestyle, his career, the very foundation he now stood on, to deceive her. Confrontation would be easy. It would give him the power to spin the truth, to lie, to manipulate. But Danielle wasn't looking for rage. She wanted clarity, proof, and revenge. The next morning, she met with Dr. Abuka, an old friend from university who now ran a private neurology clinic. Over coffee, she laid out her plan with the precision of someone drafting a business strategy. A staged accident, a claim of temporary blindness, a carefully crafted medical report, enough to make it real to Jordan but reversible to the rest of the world. Dr. Abuka hesitated at first, concerned for her mental health, but eventually agreed. "Just don't lose yourself in this," he warned. She nodded, but the truth was, she already had. She returned home later that day, her mind already spinning with logistics. She informed Jordan about the accident, a late-night crash on 3rd Mainland Bridge, blurred vision, disorientation. He didn't ask many questions, just rubbed the back of his neck and muttered something about work. She told him she'd be hospitalized for 2 weeks, that the doctors weren't sure if her vision would return. His reaction was telling. He flinched, just slightly, and said nothing. Behind the scenes, Danielle got to work. Surveillance equipment was discreetly installed in their home audio in the living room, hidden cameras in key spots. Naomi was brought in under the guise of live-in help during her recovery, but her real task was far more delicate: observe, document, and protect Danielle Porter. Once blinded by love, had chosen to become blind by design. If Jordan's love was real, he'd stay, he'd nurture, he'd fight for her. But if it was all a lie, as she suspected, then her blindness would do what her sight could not. It would reveal the truth, and she was ready to see it. On the second day of Danielle's supposed blindness, Jordan left the hospital before noon. He kissed her forehead stiffly, the way someone might pat a pet out of obligation, then mumbled something about a board meeting and walked out. Danielle didn't move, didn't flinch. She only listened to his retreating footsteps, to the silence that followed, and later, to the cold truth transmitted through the small earpiece nestled under her hair. That night, Naomi's voice trembled as she whispered into the secure line from the house. Madame... she's here. Danielle already knew who she was, but hearing it still turned her stomach. Ava, she's in your house. She came in like she owned it. She didn't even ask permission. She's in your bedroom now. Danielle's hand tightened around her phone. She said nothing. She didn't have to. The audio feed crackled for a moment, and then Jordan's voice came through low, amused, dripping with contempt. She's blind now, practically useless. I'll get her to sign over the rest of the shares by next month. Then we're done pretending. Ava laughed, a light, girlish laugh that grated like broken glass. You're cold, she giggled. You love it, Jordan replied. Danielle couldn't breathe. Her pulse thundered in her ears as her fingers trembled uncontrollably. There it was, confirmation, not just of betrayal, but of something deeper, more deliberate. He wasn't merely unfaithful. He was orchestrating her erasure. Over the next few days, Danielle stayed in her hospital bed, her eyes bandaged, her movements slow and deliberate. But behind the blankness of her stare, her mind worked overtime. Every conversation, every detail, Naomi relayed. Every file she accessed remotely through her private admin system. Added to the mosaic of treachery, Ava made no attempt to hide her presence. Naomi sent Danielle photos taken discreetly of Ava draped in one of Danielle's silk robes, sipping champagne in her kitchen, posing in front of the ornate mirror in the walk-in closet. Danielle's closet. Ava tried on her heels, carried her handbags, posted mirror selfies with cryptic captions like asterisk only the finest for a queen. Danielle watched in silence, each image cutting deeper than the last. Meanwhile, Jordan turned coldly methodical. He began pressuring Danielle to hand over her executive authority temporarily. He framed it as concern. The board is getting nervous, he said, standing stiffly by her hospital bed. You can't exactly lead if you can't see. Investors are asking questions. We should talk about delegating decisions just until you recover. He sent proxies to meetings she should have chaired. She overheard him cancelling calls behind her back, deleting emails before she could listen to them aloud. When her phone would chime, he'd intercept it. Don't worry about that, babe, he'd say, slipping it into his pocket. You need rest. Danielle said nothing. She nodded meekly. Let him believe he was winning, but every lie, every step he took toward stealing what she built was being recorded. Every word captured by the discreet surveillance system Naomi and the tech team had installed in the house and on Jordan's devices. She wasn't just pretending to be blind, she was watching more clearly than ever. One night, just before the nurses dimmed the hospital lights, Danielle lay motionless, her phone hidden under the blanket, the audio still streaming. She heard Ava laughing in her bedroom again, this time trying on her wedding dress. Jordan chuckled. We should burn that thing, he said. Danielle whispered to the darkness, her voice barely audible. He's not just cheating, he's planning to erase me. The words felt like acid on her tongue. The betrayal was deeper than she had feared, methodical, rehearsed, cruel. This wasn't a man falling out of love. This was a man waging a quiet war against the woman who built his kingdom. But Danielle didn't cry. She listened, she waited, and she recorded. Everything. Danielle returned home under the weight of manufactured blindness, the thick bandage still wrapped around her eyes like a shield of gauze and quiet defiance. The air inside the mansion was different, no colder, thinner, like oxygen had been siphoned out and replaced with mockery. Every creak of the wooden floor beneath her feet felt unfamiliar, as though she were walking through someone else's life. Her own home had become a theater of betrayal, and she, the uninvited ghost haunting its halls. She moved slowly, hand trailing along the wall for effect, every step measured and deliberate. Behind her, Naomi followed at a respectful distance. Her silence weighted with concern. Danielle could feel Ava's presence before she saw, rather sensed her. The sharp scent of Ava's designer perfume sliced through the air like an insult. Ava breezed past her in the corridor without so much as a word, the soft click of her heels ringing with ownership. A few seconds later, Danielle heard the unmistakable sound of Ava laughing into a phone, her voice saccharine and sharp. "She's so pitiful now," Ava said, like a lost dog in her own house. Danielle said nothing. She kept walking. Jordan, ever the chameleon, played his roles with precision. When Ava wasn't around, he turned mean. "You used to be so powerful," he sneered one morning in the kitchen as she reached blindly for the kettle. "Now look at you fumbling around like a liability." His voice was low, cruel, the venom of contempt coating every syllable. "Do you even know how pathetic you sound when you ask for help?" He only ever said these things when no one else could hear, careful to keep up appearances elsewhere. But Danielle always heard, and she always recorded to the outside world. He was a devoted husband. He told their friends, solemn and glassy-eyed, that the trauma of Danielle's condition was tearing him apart. "She's not the same," he whispered to one of her former board members over drinks on the patio. "She talks to herself, paranoid, distrustful. I think she's losing her grip." The board member nodded, concerned, not realizing he was being ushered into Jordan's carefully spun narrative. Then came the visits from the lawyer. Purely precautionary, Jordan claimed, all faux warmth and gentle tones. Just in case Danielle needs someone to help manage things while she recovers. "We don't want to overwhelm her, right?" Danielle sat silently on the sofa during these conversations, wrapped in a throw blanket, her face passive. She didn't need to see the glint of ambition in Jordan's eyes to know it was there. Naomi sat beside her during these visits, her knuckles white from clenching her hands, biting back protests. Later, Naomi pulled Danielle aside, voice trembling with fear. "Madame, you've proved enough. Please, end this before it gets worse. Before he takes something you can't get back." But Danielle's voice was firm, cold. "He thinks I'm blind. Let him show me everything." And he did. He began siphoning money from their joint accounts. Small amounts at first, just enough to avoid immediate suspicion. Then bolder transfers, tucked away into foreign accounts under shell company names. He started contacting board members privately, floating the idea that Danielle's condition might require a more permanent shift in leadership. Always in a hushed tone, always with the veneer of concern. "We need to think about the future of the company," he told them. "She might never fully recover." At night, he played the grieving husband for anyone watching. Danielle overheard him faking a breakdown in the living room, sobbing, slurring words about how hard it was to see the woman he loved fall apart. She heard the sympathetic murmurs of guests, the soft clinks of crystal glasses being passed around, the lies being fed like honey, and upstairs, alone in the master bedroom, Danielle stared into the dark void behind her bandages, holding her phone tightly as it captured every sound. The final humiliation came late one Saturday night. Ava, assuming Danielle had finally sunk into sleep or perhaps simply didn't care through a private party in the mansion, Laughter echoed up the stairwell. Music pulsed through the walls. The scent of wine and sweat and expensive cologne drifted into her room. Danielle lay still, every fiber of her body burning with fury. She could hear Ava's voice in the crowd below. "Can you believe she still lives here? Like technically." At that moment, surrounded by the noise of her own erasure, Danielle felt the edges of herself harden. She remembered her late mother's voice, strong and unwavering even in illness. Asterisk, a woman's silence is not weakness, Danielle. It's strategy. Power moves in silence before it strikes. Asterisk, she whispered the words now, lips barely moving. Her eyes, though covered, were wide open beneath the bandage. Naomi remained her only anchor, the quiet witness to the slow undoing of Danielle's world. Together, they watched, they recorded, they waited. Danielle was no longer trying to salvage her marriage. That part of her, the hopeful part, had died. What remained now was resolve. Cold, focused, and lethal. Because she wasn't blind, she was bait, and the trap was almost ready to snap shut. The final straw came on a quiet Sunday morning. The city outside pulsed with heat and the usual Lagos bustle. But Danielle sat in silence, scrolling through her phone with trembling fingers. Naomi had slipped her the device with a haunted expression and the words, "You need to see this." What greeted Danielle on the screen was a TikTok video already going viral. Ava draped in Danielle's ivory silk robe, legs stretched across Danielle's favorite armchair, swirling a glass of Danielle's vintage wine, looked straight into the camera. Lips curled into a mocking smile. "Queen of the castle," she purred, raising her glass in a lazy toast. The caption beneath it screamed in bold letters, asterisk, "Queen of the castle." Hashtag, blessed asterisk. Danielle's breath caught in her throat. The video had hundreds of thousands of views, thousands of comments. Strangers laughing, praising Ava's audacity. People speculating about the poor blind wife. The violation was total, public, intentional. That same afternoon, Jordan made his boldest move. Thinking Danielle still helpless in her bandaged silence, he forged her signature on a power of attorney document, one that would effectively strip her of all control over her shares, her company, and the assets she had spent her life building. He made calls, set meetings, smiled to himself as he laid the final bricks of his betrayal. But what Jordan didn't know, what he had never even thought to consider, was that Danielle had already anticipated his desperation. The cameras had been rolling for weeks. Every word he'd said, every lie, every scheme, every late-night whisper to Ava, all of it had been documented and time-stamped. Her lawyer, Fola Adebayo, had already received the files. Asset protection had been filed. The forged documents were invalid. The financial transactions flagged and reversed. The walls Jordan thought he had torn down had only been an illusion. She had never stopped building behind the scenes. The next morning, Danielle summoned the board. She made no announcement, just a quiet request through Fola's office. A private, urgent session. No details shared. And then she walked in. No bandage, no cane, no assistance. Just Danielle tall, poised eyes sharp with fire and fury. The boardroom went silent. Gasps echoed. Jordan, seated confidently at the head of the table, turned pale as his jaw slackened. Ava, perched beside him like a smug accessory, froze mid-sip of coffee. Danielle didn't speak immediately. She simply walked to the center of the room and placed a tablet on the table. She pressed play. Jordan's voice filled the room. "She's blind now, practically useless. I'll get her to sign over the rest of the shares by next month. Then Ava, can we renovate this place once she's, gone? Laughter, kisses, more recordings, Jordan mocking her, deleting her emails, cancelling meetings. Then she won't even know I forged it. She's half out of her mind already. When it ended, the silence was suffocating. Danielle turned, slow and deliberate, her eyes fixed on Jordan. You've been very busy, she said, voice calm, ice-edged. The board shifted uncomfortably. One member leaned forward. Jordan, ... Is this real? Her lawyer stood then, expression unreadable. We've submitted the audio recordings and forged documents to the authorities. Legal action is already underway. Effective immediately, Mr. Porter's access to company resources is revoked. Security stepped into the room. Jordan rose, voice cracking. Wait, this is a mistake. This is all a misunderstanding. Danielle, please. I didn't know how to love a strong woman. I thought, if I could just have control. She stared at him, unblinking. You never lost me, she said. You threw me away, and now I see everything. Ava bolted before security could reach her, clutching her designer bag like a stolen trophy. No one stopped her. No one cared. She vanished down the hallway like a ghost. Jordan, trembling now, tried again. I thought we could fix this. Danielle stepped closer, her voice steady. You buried the woman who built you, but I don't. Die quietly, and I don't beg. With that, security escorted him out past stunned executives, past the assistant who refused to meet his eyes, past the company he would never touch again. Danielle stood in the center of the room, tall and unshaken. A woman once betrayed, now reborn, not as a victim, but as a weapon. The silence she had kept had not been feared. It had been strategy, and now she had spoken. Weeks later, Danielle stood at the top of her high-rise apartment in downtown Lagos, overlooking the city that had once witnessed both her rise and her new. The sprawling mansion, the hollow symbol of a broken life, was gone, sold quietly, its echoes and betrayals swept clean. In its place, she chose something smaller, sharper, and entirely hers. A minimalist space filled with light, silence, and peace. No shadows lingered here. No ghosts. Back at the company, she moved with the precision of someone reborn. The rot had been cut, out Jordan's allies dismissed, financial irregularities corrected, internal policies tightened. The board, once hesitant, now moved with renewed faith in her leadership. She worked long hours, but with a new energy, a new purpose, and by her side, always steady, was Naomi, no longer just the soft-spoken assistant, but now her executive assistant to the CEO. Naomi had earned more than a title. She had been Danielle's only anchor when everything had threatened to pull her under. Danielle's first company-wide meeting since reclaiming her position was held in the glass conference room she had designed herself years ago. She stood before her team, no notes, no script, just truth. Power, she said, her voice resonant and calm, doesn't come from control. It comes from clarity, from knowing who you are and trusting what you see even when others try to blind you. I see more now than I ever have, and I won't ever ignore my instincts again. There was silence, and then applause, not the forced, polite, kind, but a ripple of respect that moved like a wave through the room. Danielle didn't smile for show. She simply nodded, calm and sure, knowing that this was the real beginning. Later that evening, a letter arrived, one Naomi found tucked into a stack of forwarded documents. The return address was unmistakable. Kirikiri Correctional Center, Jordan, he had written to her. A final attempt, apologies, regret, a desperate plea wrapped in ink. Naomi held it out to her, uncertain. Danielle looked at it. Her eyes didn't flinch. She didn't open it. She never would. Some truths didn't need to be heard to be understood. She had already read every page of him, and she had closed the book. Instead, she turned back toward the window, the city lights glinting below, her reflection clear and unwavering in the glass. Stronger, sharper, whole, she had seen the worst, and she had chosen not to break. She had chosen herself. The apartment was quiet, bathed in the soft hum of the city below. It was too late for work calls, too early for the next day's noise. Danielle walked barefoot across the cool hardwood floor, the silk hem of her robe brushing her ankles. She moved slowly, deliberately, as if savoring the stillness. Floor-to-ceiling windows framed the night skyline of Lagos, shimmering with life. Each flicker of light a reminder that the world kept turning, and so had she. She reached for her phone on the console table and opened her saved voicemails. Only one remained. She tapped it, and the voice that came through was warm, familiar, edged with love and old wisdom. Her mother, gone for years, yet somehow still here. No matter how far you climb, the voice said softly, stay soft but never be blind to the ones closest to you. Danielle smiled, a small, private curve of her lips. The kind of smile that came from healing, not pretending. She took a deep breath, let it fill her fully, and then released it, long, slow, steady. Her eyes drifted closed, not in fear, but in peace. In her mind, the past no longer clawed for attention. The lies had been revealed, the betrayals laid bare, and the girl who had once given everything without question had returned, stronger, wiser, but still soft where it mattered. She had not let pain harden her. She had let it carve clarity. Her voice, steady and quiet, echoed in the stillness, part memory, part vow. I once pretended to be blind to see the truth. Now, I see everything, and I'll never lose sight of myself again.